The great city of Troy, once a bastion of power and pride, crumbled beneath the relentless assault of the Greeks. Flames danced in the streets, consuming homes and temples alike. The air was thick with smoke and the cries of the dying. Aeneas, son of Venus, fought valiantly amidst the chaos. Each swing of his sword cleaved a path through the enemy, but the tide was overwhelming. Troy was lost. Mindful of his duty, Aeneas sought out his aged father, Anchises. The weight of his father felt immense as he stumbled through the flames. Anchises clutched a statue of the household gods, their protectors. With Anchises upon his shoulders and his young son, Aeneas, clinging to his hand, Aeneas led a small band of Trojan survivors away from the inferno. Each step was a painful reminder of their shattered world. Gathering the remnants of his people on the shores, Aeneas rallied their spirits. "We may have lost our home," he declared, "but we will find a new one." As he prayed for guidance, a vision came to Aeneas. He saw a distant land, a fertile shore bathed in golden light. "Italy," a voice whispered, "there lies your destiny." With newfound purpose, Aeneas and his followers set sail. Their ships, though scarred from battle, cut through the waves, carrying them away from the ashes of Troy and towards an uncertain future. Anchises, despite his age and frailty, offered counsel and wisdom. He reminded them of their glorious past and urged them to embrace their destiny with courage. Aeneas, ever vigilant, guided his fleet through treacherous waters. He knew the journey would be long and arduous, but he was determined to fulfill his destiny. The Trojan women wept, their hearts heavy with grief for their lost loved ones and their ravaged homeland. Yet they clung to the hope of a brighter future in the land promised by the gods. Despite the hardships and uncertainties, Aeneas held fast to his faith. He clutched the sacred statues of the household gods, symbols of their heritage and their hope for the future. And so the Trojans sailed on, exiles driven by fate, towards a land they had never seen, a land where they would forge a new destiny, a land that would one day be called Rome. With Troy a smoldering memory, Aeneas led his fleet westward, guided by the faintest glimmer of hope and the whispers of destiny. The vast, unforgiving Mediterranean stretched before them, an endless expanse of blue that mirrored the uncertainty of their future. "Italy," Anchises rasped, his voice thin but resolute. "Seek the land where Dardanus, our ancestor, first hailed. There lies your destiny, Aeneas." Aeneas nodded, the weight of his father's words heavy on his shoulders. Juno, queen of the gods, still burning with hatred for the Trojans, watched their progress with vengeful eyes. She unleashed a storm of unimaginable fury, the sea churning into a maelstrom of wind and water. "Hold fast," Aeneas roared, his voice barely audible above the storm. "By the gods, we will not be defeated." He fought alongside his men, their courage a flickering flame against the overwhelming power of the storm. Ships were splintered, men were lost, and hope seemed to dwindle with each passing wave. The Trojan fleet, once a symbol of their resilience, was scattered across the sea. After days of unrelenting torment, the storm finally subsided. Aeneas, clinging to a piece of wreckage, was washed ashore on the shores of Libya, his body bruised, his spirit weary. With a heavy heart, Aeneas gathered his remaining men and set out to find refuge. Their path led them to the magnificent city of Carthage, ruled by the beautiful and powerful Queen Dido. Aeneas, with eloquence born of suffering, recounted the tragic tale of Troy's fall and the Trojans' desperate flight. Dido listened with compassion, her heart stirred by his courage and his plight. "Trojans," Dido declared, her voice ringing with authority, Carthage welcomes you. Here you shall find refuge, and here you shall rebuild your lives." But Juno's wrath was far from quenched. While Aeneas and his men rested in Carthage, she plotted new trials to keep them from their destined home in Italy. Despite the hospitality of Dido, Aeneas felt a growing unease. Dreams of Italy haunted his sleep, and the whispers of destiny grew louder with each passing day. "Aeneas," Anchises said, his voice weak but firm, "do not tarry. Your destiny lies beyond these shores. Remember your duty to your people, to your future. Italy awaits." After days of battling the tempestuous sea, the Trojan fleet, or what remained of it, limped towards an unfamiliar shore. Exhaustion weighed heavily upon Aeneas and his men, but the sight of land rekindled a flicker of hope in their hearts. They had reached the shores of Carthage. Queen Dido, a Phoenician princess who had fled tyranny and founded Carthage, was a ruler of remarkable wisdom and compassion. Upon hearing of the arrival of shipwrecked Trojans, she felt a kinship with their plight and resolved to offer them aid. Aeneas, accompanied by a select group of his most trusted men, approached the city gates and requested an audience with the queen. He presented himself as a leader of the Trojan people, seeking refuge and assistance. Dido received Aeneas with open arms, captivated by his noble bearing and the sorrowful tale etched upon his face. She invited him and his people to Carthage, promising them hospitality and a new home. The exhausted Trojans gratefully accepted Dido's offer, and the Carthaginian people assisted them in repairing their ships and tending to the wounded. A sense of relief washed over the refugees, a brief respite from their long and arduous journey. In the days that followed, Aeneas and Dido grew closer. They shared stories and found solace in each other's company. Dido was drawn to Aeneas's courage and his unwavering devotion to his people. Anchises, weakened by age and hardship, observed the growing affection between his son and the queen. He hoped that Aeneas had finally found a place of peace, but a nagging unease lingered in his heart. One evening, Dido implored Aeneas to tell her the story of Troy's fall. Aeneas, hesitant at first, eventually yielded to her request, his heart heavy with memories of the past. He recounted the treachery of the Trojan horse, the slaughter of his people, and the agonizing loss of his beloved wife, Creusa. His words painted a vivid picture of the horrors of war and the despair that had consumed him and his fellow Trojans. Aeneas continued his tale, describing their arduous journey across the Mediterranean, the relentless storms that threatened to engulf them, and the strange and hostile lands they encountered. Dido listened with rapt attention, her heart aching for Aeneas and his people. She recognized in him a kindred spirit, a fellow survivor who had endured unimaginable suffering. As Aeneas concluded his tale, a profound silence filled the room. Dido reached out and gently took his hand, offering him comfort and understanding. In that moment, a bond was forged between them, a connection that would have unforeseen consequences. Days turned into weeks, and the shared hardships began to forge a bond between Aeneas and Dido. They found solace in each other's company, sharing stories of their pasts and dreams for the future. Dido, captivated by Aeneas's strength and nobility, found her grief slowly beginning to subside. Together, Aeneas and Dido ruled Carthage. He advised her on matters of defense and governance, while she, in turn, offered him comfort and a sense of belonging he hadn't felt since leaving Troy. Their love deepened with each passing day. Their love was passionate and all-consuming. They found solace in each other's arms, forgetting the pain of the past and dreaming of a shared future. For a brief, fleeting moment, Aeneas dared to believe that he had finally found a place to call home. But destiny, it seemed, had other plans. One night as Aeneas slept, he was visited by Mercury, the messenger of the gods. The god appeared in a dream, his voice stern and unwavering. "Aeneas," Mercury commanded, "why do you linger in Carthage, forgetting your destiny? The fates have decreed that you must sail to Italy and found a new Troy. Your son, Aeneas, awaits his kingdom. Fulfill your destiny." Torn between his love for Dido and his duty to his people, Aeneas wrestled with the god's command. He knew that he could not ignore the divine will, but the thought of leaving Dido filled him with despair. He resolved to obey the gods. Silently, he ordered his men to prepare the ships for departure. He knew that he had to leave Carthage, but he dreaded the moment he would have to tell Dido. But Dido, ever perceptive, noticed the unusual activity around the harbor. Suspicion gnawed at her, and she confronted Aeneas, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "Do you think you can leave me, Aeneas, without a word?" she cried. "Have you forgotten our vows, our love? Where is your honor?" Aeneas, his heart breaking, tried to explain the divine command. "I do not leave willingly, Dido," he said, "but the gods have ordered me to sail to Italy. My destiny lies there, not here. I must found a new Troy, a new home for my people." Dido, inconsolable, refused to listen. She cursed Aeneas and his destiny, vowing that there would be eternal hatred between their peoples. As the Trojan ship sailed away, Aeneas could hear Dido's anguished cries echoing across the water. He knew that he had broken her heart, but he also knew that he could not turn back. His destiny awaited him in Italy, and he had to fulfill it, no matter the cost. The command given, the anchors weighed, Aeneas turned his back on Carthage. Duty, the fates, and the ghost of his destiny pulled him westward, leaving behind a love he knew he could not keep. Dido watched them go, her heart a shattered mirror reflecting only pain. Betrayal burned in her veins, a searing fire fueled by love and abandonment. With a voice raw with grief and rage, Dido invoked the gods, her curse a venomous arrow aimed at Aeneas and all his descendants. "Let there be war between our peoples," she cried, "eternal hatred and unending conflict." The palace, once filled with laughter and love, now echoed with her solitude. Memories of Aeneas haunted her, each one a fresh wound in her already broken heart. Driven to the brink, Dido resolved to escape her torment. Aeneas's sword, a symbol of their fleeting love, became the instrument of her despair. A pyre was built, a funeral for her lost love and her fading hope. Upon it, she placed the remnants of their time together, preparing for her final act. With a final, desperate cry, she plunged the sword into her breast. Her lifeblood stained the pyre, a sacrifice to her broken heart and a testament to her undying love and hatred. The flames roared, consuming her earthly form, carrying her sorrow and her curse on the wind. Even as Aeneas sailed on, the smoke of Dido's pyre marked the horizon, a haunting reminder of what he had left behind. From the deck of his ship, Aeneas saw the smoke, a dark plume against the horizon. He knew what it meant, and a shadow fell across his heart. Yet duty called him onward, away from the ashes of Carthage and towards the shores of Italy. Anchises, wise and weary, placed a hand on Aeneas's shoulder. "The gods demand much of us, my son," he said, his voice weak but firm. "We must bear these burdens with courage, for the sake of those who follow." The fleet sailed on, westward towards the unknown. The weight of Dido's curse, the burden of destiny, and the promise of a new world pressed down upon them, driving them ever forward. Aeneas stood firm, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The past was a heavy chain, but the future, however uncertain, beckoned. He was Aeneas, son of Venus, and he would not falter. He would fulfill his destiny, no matter the cost. Driven by the winds of fate, Aeneas and his weary Trojans finally reached the shores of Italy. Their destination, Cumae, where the legendary Sibyl dwelled, a priestess blessed with the gift of prophecy who could guide him to the underworld. Within the Sibyl's cavernous temple, Aeneas sought her counsel. The air crackled with arcane energy as the priestess, her voice echoing with the voices of ages, foretold the trials that awaited him in Italy and revealed the path to speak with his father, Anchises, in the realm of the dead. Guided by the Sibyl, Aeneas ventured into the abyss, descending through a labyrinth of subterranean tunnels. The air grew heavy, the silence profound, broken only by the drip of water and the Sibyl's whispered incantations. They reached the banks of Acheron, the river of woe. Charon, the gaunt ferryman, his eyes burning with ancient sorrow, begrudgingly agreed to transport Aeneas and the Sibyl across the murky waters, leading to the gates of the underworld. Past Cerberus, the three-headed hound guarding the entrance, lulled into slumber by the Sibyl's enchanted offering, Aeneas and his guide entered the realm of the dead. Shades of the departed swirled around them, their mournful whispers filling the air. Aeneas's heart ached as he passed through the fields of mourning, where the spirits of those who had died for love wandered in perpetual sorrow. There he saw Dido's shade, forever haunted by the betrayal she felt at his departure. He tried to speak to her, but she turned away, her grief unyielding. Further on, they avoided the fiery depths of Tartarus, where the wicked were eternally punished. The groans of the damned and the crack of the Fury's whip served as a stark reminder of the consequences of evil. Finally, they reached the Elysian fields, a realm of serene beauty and eternal light. Here, the spirits of heroes and virtuous souls resided in blissful peace. The air was filled with the scent of flowers and the sound of joyous melodies. In a verdant grove, Aeneas found his father, Anchises. A wave of emotion washed over him as he embraced the spirit of the man he had carried from burning Troy. Anchises' eyes, though filled with the wisdom of the ages, sparkled with fatherly love. Anchises revealed to Aeneas the destiny that awaited his descendants. He showed him visions of future Roman heroes, their deeds and triumphs etched in the fabric of time. He spoke of Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, and of the emperors who would rule with justice and might. "Remember your purpose, my son," Anchises urged, his voice resonating with paternal pride. "Endure the trials that lie ahead, for you are destined to found a great nation. Let courage and justice be your guiding principles, and Rome will rise to become the mistress of the world." Strengthened by his father's words and filled with a renewed sense of purpose, Aeneas emerged from the underworld, ready to face the challenges that awaited him in Italy. The weight of destiny rested upon his shoulders, but he carried it with unwavering resolve. After enduring countless trials, the Trojan fleet finally reached the shores of Latium. The land stretched before them, a promise of refuge after years of wandering. Aeneas, his heart heavy with hope and apprehension, gazed upon the Italian coast. As the Trojans disembarked, their feet touched Italian soil for the first time. Weariness clung to them, yet a sense of accomplishment mingled with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. They had arrived, but their true trials were just beginning. Aeneas, mindful of diplomacy, sought an audience with King Latinus, the ruler of Latium. He hoped to secure a peaceful settlement for his people, a place to rebuild their lives and fulfill the prophecy. King Latinus, a wise and just ruler, received Aeneas with open arms. He had heard the prophecy of a foreign hero arriving to unite the land, and saw in Aeneas a fulfillment of that destiny. An alliance was forged between the Trojans and the Latins, symbolized by the exchange of gifts and promises of mutual support. Aeneas and his people found a haven in Latium, a chance to rebuild their shattered lives. But Juno, the vengeful queen of the gods, harbored a deep-seated hatred for the Trojans. She saw their arrival in Latium as a threat to her power and vowed to thwart their destiny. Juno in disguise stirred the heart of Turnus, the Rutulian king who was betrothed to Lavinia, King Latinus's daughter. She whispered of a Trojan usurpation, inflaming his pride and jealousy. Lavinia, the princess of Latium, found herself caught in the middle of this brewing conflict. Her potential marriage to Aeneas had been foretold, but Turnus's ambition threatened to shatter the peace. Fueled by Juno's manipulation, Turnus rallied his Rutulian warriors, preparing for war against the Trojans. He would not allow a foreign prince to steal his bride and his kingdom. Aeneas, aware of the impending conflict, gathered his Trojan commanders. He knew that war was inevitable, but he hoped to minimize the bloodshed and secure a lasting peace for his people. The Rutulian army, a formidable force, marched towards the Trojan settlement, their war cries echoing through the valleys of Latium. The clash between Trojans and Rutulians was imminent, setting the stage for a bloody conflict. Aeneas, standing at the head of his Trojan warriors, drew his sword, a symbol of defiance and determination. The war for Latium had begun, a war that would test his courage, his leadership, and his very destiny. The arrival of the Trojans in Latium had stirred up a hornet's nest. Turnus, the Rutulian king, saw Aeneas not as a refugee, but as a challenger to his power, a threat to his claim on Lavinia and the kingdom itself. War was now inevitable, a storm gathering on the horizon. Turnus, never one to shy away from conflict, rallied his forces. He reminded them of their heritage, their strength, and the insult of a foreign power daring to settle on their land. His words were like fuel to a fire, igniting the passions of his warriors. Aeneas, ever the strategist, knew that the Trojans alone could not withstand the might of the Rutulians. He sought alliances, sending emissaries to the neighboring tribes, promising them peace and prosperity in exchange for their support against Turnus. One such emissary found favor with King Evander of Pallanteum, a wise and just ruler who had long been wary of Turnus's ambition. Evander agreed to offer his support to Aeneas, bolstering the Trojan ranks with his Arcadian warriors. News of Evander's betrayal reached Turnus, fueling his rage. He vowed to crush not only the Trojans but also any who dared to stand with them. His war machine was set in motion, an unstoppable force of destruction. The combined forces of the Trojans and Arcadians moved towards the Rutulian border, a united front against the impending storm. They were a mix of seasoned veterans and eager young warriors, all bound by the common goal of survival. The gods themselves took sides in this conflict. Juno, still harboring her grudge against the Trojans, whispered into Turnus's ear, urging him to strike first and decisively. She sought to prolong the suffering of Aeneas and his people. Skirmishes broke out along the border, small-scale clashes that served as a prelude to the larger conflict. Each side tested the other's strength, probing for weaknesses, drawing first blood. Aeneas, burdened by the weight of responsibility, sought solace in prayer. He implored the gods to look favorably upon his people, to grant them the strength to overcome this latest trial. He knew that the fate of his city, of his destiny, hung in the balance. Turnus, emboldened by Juno's influence, marched his army directly towards the Trojan camp. He intended to crush them utterly, to extinguish their hopes of a new life, to claim Lavinia and the kingdom for himself. The battle began with a roar. Rutulian soldiers swarmed over the Trojan defenses, their swords dripping with blood. The Trojans, caught off guard, fought with the ferocity of cornered animals, determined to protect their families and their future. Aeneas, witnessing the destruction, knew that this was more than just a battle for land. It was a battle for survival, a test of their will, a fight for the very destiny that had brought them to these shores. The war had truly begun. The siege began as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the fields of Latium. Turnus, burning with a thirst for glory and vengeance, had amassed his forces, determined to crush the Trojan settlement before it could take root. The Rutulian army, a tide of bronze and fury, surged forward, their battle cries echoing across the plain. Turnus, at their head, was a whirlwind of aggression, eager to prove his strength and claim Lavinia as his own. Aeneas, ever vigilant, commanded his troops with unwavering resolve. The Trojans, though outnumbered, stood firm, their shields locked, a wall against the onslaught. The battle raged with unrelenting fury. Trojans and Rutulians clashed in a desperate struggle for survival, each side giving no quarter. Turnus, a force of nature, led the assault on the main gate, his sword a blur of motion. He cleaved through the Trojan ranks, leaving a trail of fallen warriors in his wake. Seeing the danger, Aeneas rushed to the gate, his presence bolstering the spirits of his weary troops. He met Turnus head-on, their shields colliding with a deafening crash. The two leaders fought with unmatched ferocity, their every move a dance of death. Aeneas, driven by duty and destiny, Turnus, fueled by rage and ambition. The battle claimed many lives. Brave warriors fell on both sides, their dreams and hopes extinguished in the heat of conflict. Anchises, too old to fight, could only listen to the sounds of battle, praying for the safety of his son and the survival of his people. He knew that the fate of Troy rested on their shoulders. The night wore on and the siege continued unabated. The Rutulians, relentless in their assault, battered the Trojan defenses with siege engines, but the Trojans held firm. As dawn approached, Aeneas, seeing a breach in the wall, led a counterattack, driving back the Rutulians with renewed vigor. He knew they had to hold until reinforcements arrived. As the first rays of dawn illuminated the battlefield, the Rutulians, weary and disheartened, retreated, leaving behind a scene of carnage. The Trojans had survived the siege, but the war was far from over. The day of the duel dawned, casting a pale light over the war-torn fields of Latium. Aeneas, his heart heavy with the weight of destiny, prepared to face Turnus. The fate of two peoples hung in the balance, resting on the strength and skill of two warriors. Turnus, fueled by pride and a burning desire to defend his kingdom, entered the arena with a confident stride. His armor shone and his red cloak billowed behind him, a symbol of his defiance against the Trojan invaders. The duel began with a furious exchange of blows. Aeneas and Turnus clashed in the center of the field, their swords meeting with a deafening clang. Sparks flew as steel met steel, each warrior testing the other's strength and skill. Aeneas, remembering the prophecy of Rome's glorious future, fought with unwavering determination. He parried Turnus's blows, each movement precise and calculated, his eyes focused on victory. Turnus, fueled by rage and the fear of losing his kingdom, pressed his attack. He drove Aeneas back, his blows relentless and unforgiving. The crowd roared, sensing the shift in momentum. Aeneas stumbled, his foot catching on uneven ground. For a moment he lost his balance, giving Turnus the opening he had been waiting for. Turnus lunged forward, his sword aimed at Aeneas's chest. A triumphant cry escaped his lips as he saw victory within his grasp. But Aeneas, a seasoned warrior, recovered quickly. With a surge of strength he raised his shield, deflecting Turnus's blow at the last moment. A renewed resolve hardened his features. Seizing the opportunity, Aeneas retaliated with a swift and decisive blow. His sword found its mark on Turnus's armor, piercing through the metal and drawing blood. Turnus stumbled, weakened by the blow. His eyes, once filled with fire and defiance, now reflected pain and the bitter taste of defeat. Aeneas stood over the fallen Turnus, his sword raised. A complex mix of emotions played across his face: triumph, sorrow, and the heavy burden of destiny. With a heavy heart, he delivered the final blow. With Turnus defeated, peace settled over Latium. Aeneas, fulfilling his destiny, began the construction of a new city. The Trojans and Latins united, laying the foundations for a civilization that would one day rule the world. The first stones of Rome were laid, a testament to the courage, sacrifice, and unwavering determination of Aeneas and his people.